How you doing, love? It's so good to meet you and see you and hear you, and I'm thrilled about this.
I might have taken to be looking at you up there too. So for you.
Well, it is. I'm sure it has been a ride for you to have all of these conversations, and I was really. I think how I came to your work was through a project that I'm working on at the museum called the Dirty South, and it was looking at how music and visual arts and material culture all kind of come together to say something about the South and what it has yielded and what's been really persistent about living and working in the South as African Americans. And because I'm from Texas, it's not normally considered the Deep South, but nonetheless, all of us come from somewhere. But it is about the earth, and it's about our closeness to the earth and how we've had that relationship for so long that has informed so much of the work that's produced. And so that's what I wanted to capture. And when looking at that, that's when I came across your work. So I was really thrilled to know of it and to know more about you. So what I wanted to talk about was this idea when you talk about the guitar is alive, you know, when something that is static becomes alive. And it's that idea, what I like to call something like resonance. It's how something resonates, how you can breathe life, so to speak, into something, or something that has a life force in it. Where did that life force come from? And how do you recognize it? You talk about the wood a lot. So let me start. I mean, I know a lot of conversation has started. So I think we start at the beginning, which is, you know, when do you recognize that piece of wood? And when do you recognize the life force in a piece of wood? And what draws you to the raw material that you then create something else from?
Well, I've been messing with wood a long time, cause no instrument anybody ever made sounded just right. But something happened one time, when I came out of my shop, it wasn't a sound, it was a feeling. It wasn't that feeling, it was the music all over me. That messed my head up about music. Because I was seeking for that same sound, but I never found it and everything. Played blues and shot houses, did this and done that and everything, but it never came to me. So I buy all kind of wood. And I bought some from a man, and he told me as I was loading it in my truck, he said, Freeman said, you might not want that wood, because a young man was hung on that tree. And I started messing with that wood, and the strangest thing, I don't know whether you're superstitious or not, but it was a strange feeling about them with it. So when I finished the instruments and stuff, Kim came by, and I got to let Kim away from that because there was something strange about it. And other wood has a personality too, but not never like that. That wood had an aggressive it's hard to explain. You will have to just mess with one of the instruments to know what I'm talking about. It ain't just like picking up a mass-produced guitar or something else. It's a totally different. These are feelings. I mean, strange feeling when you pick it up and plug it in and clunk around with it. So I was glad when he came away from that. But I'm working on some new stuff now, and it ain't as bad as it was with that. Folks say I'm superstitious, but they don't know. All they got to do is take one of the instruments and mess with it, play with it. They'll find out. All wood has a signature to a sound, but this wood here, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. And all of that terror and stuff was embedded right in the tree. All you had to do was enhance it. It was already there.
So what was the tone? What was the tone once you finished? Did you finish the guitar? I've seen the whole of it, and we can show images. That was the hanging guitar, right?
I finished some of the African type guitar. I got that that piece of wood a long time ago, back in the 70s from, he said he was African, I don't know. It was a piece of monkey part. It hadn't been finished, but I enhanced it a little bit, put a neck and some pickups on it, and played it a while, and it won't like that John Brown hanging tree wood though.
So what sound did it make? I mean, you play instruments anyway. I mean, how did you get into making the guitar?
Seeking my sound. In the beginning, I was seeking a different sound than what the white man had, and it didn't work. I mean, you know, I had to use the material, this and that right there. At this time, I did not know the tonal quality of wood. I knew nothing about it. I thought wood just looked good to do this and that right there with a neck on it, but after years and years and years, I found out wood has its own characteristics and tonal quality. And this hanging tree wood, why it's like that, I don't know. But
Well, I think we know why. I mean, I mean, it is something that you said before. You know, it's what people may not believe, but it's what you know in your spirit, that the terror and the horror and the pain that was felt, that was inflicted upon that young man that was hung from that tree, that transferred, you know, that really embedded itself into the heart of that tree. You know, you made a beautiful statement that that man died, but the tree lived. You know, maybe that tree lived to tell this story.
and it's still living. It's still living. And another thing too about the talking. See, there are a lot of people, see, I can tell you this because you know I ain't lying. But I have seen a guy bleeding to death through the nose, and Miss what her name was, the midwife in the neighborhood come over and laid her hand on his head and said some words and stuff, and the blood completely stopped. But this day and time here, they would have took him to the hospital.
No, I mean, these are real. And this is the kind of idea around mysticism, that the South is where we developed those powers. I mean, maybe we came to this country with those powers embedded in our hearts and in our minds, and that they've just been passed from generation to generation. Sometimes we don't even understand the power that we have or that have been displayed, because, you know, someone taught me how to talk out fire. If you burn your hand, you know, and you could talk out fire, and how you speak life into things. So, you know, in West Africa, as the men are sometimes weaving the cloth, they will speak into the cloth, you know, and it gives it some power. I notice when you are creating that you're listening to gospel music, you're listening to the word, you know. So I'm just curious, is that a consistent thing, or was that just a one-off documentary where I saw you creating a guitar and listening? Like, you know, what gets embedded when you are creating? Are you speaking into the wood? Are you playing things that also may find its way into the wood? That, I mean, it already has its tonal qualities, already has its lived experience that it's giving back or retaining. But what else do you add to that when you're creating?
Well, it depends on what mood I'm in. Now, if I'm in the blues mood of building an instrument for blues, I like for the wood to have in it, when you're sanding the wood, I like for it to have an aggressive sound, not the but the scrump, 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 and that's the blues sound. But gospel music is kind of clear, and it's totally different. And you get the little it's different sounds. It's hard to explain, but some people come and listen, and then they leave know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the idea, because I've come to a lot of this through what I know well, which is quilt making. You know, my mother quilted, my grandmother quilted, and it's how they would talk about the quilts. even after they were done, they would say, go get that loud quilt, or that quilt is soft. You know, it's as if the quilt themselves had these characteristics that allowed them to be alive, you know, and oftentimes they were quilted from discarded clothes. You know, we got too big, they would take the clothing, cut it up, you know, and allow that to be pieces, you know, to piece things together. It had memories, but it also had our energy because we wore those clothes, and there were memories about those clothes that were on the quilts that we then slept under. And I always felt like we had that protection of whomever it was, whether it was uncles or aunts or, you know, elder brothers or elder sisters, that somehow those quilts provided protection very much the same way because they had that life force in them. And the way that they were pieced together and created sort of like allowed those memories and that energy to stay there and to be a part of this thing that protected us, that warmed us. So I'm very much interested in how the sound that gets produced, you know, when you take a piece of wood, when you acknowledge what it is, what do you imbue it with? What kind of power do you put into it? Like you said, for gospel songs, for the use of gospel, it's a softer sound. And for the blues, it's more of an aggressive sound. So do you create the guitar specifically to be played for the blues, or to specifically be played for in a kind of space where people are using it for gospel music? I mean, how do you determine what guitar is used for what?
I used the atomize whether one will be used for gospel or this and that right there. Because a lot of gospel groups are playing my instrument now. I tried to buy them back, but they wouldn't sell them. And the blues instruments and everything. Here the fact is, I have learned that you can enhance the sound by putting tonal chambers in the instrument. And with these chambers, you have a low side for the bass and a high side for the treble. Well, on blues, on gospel, you want to reverse that. You want to use your tonal chambers to reverse the low side and kind of make it, it's hard to explain, but anyway, you reverse the way you do it. And you find out that you can make some pretty good, they don't look all that good, but they are well-made instruments. And I use top quality stuff on them, but I don't know anybody plays besides the little local groups around here. They bought some years ago, and now they found out that just a little thing going on, and they think they're gonna get rich off them and stuff. Got my sister, you know, all they ever done. My daddy was a wino, but he taught them archipelago, and they went high on the loop. They've been down in your home territory down there to Tyler, Texas, with Willie Neal Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And during the time down there, John Racer, he met Albert Collins and some more famous people.
Alan Wolf and yes, that's I lived in Austin for a while, and it was
I don't know where they were, but Willie Neal had his anniversary in Tyler, Texas. I know that's where they went. Mm-hmm. But if you was to get those guitars and pick one out of the pile, mess with it, and pick one out of the pile. When you come to one of those guitars out of that hanging tree, or you understand what I'm talking about. When you get one out there and stroke the strings, it's totally different. It's hard to explain. I can't explain it because I got a third grade education and don't know the big words that they use. But it's totally different.
Well, you and I know there's book knowledge, and then there's knowledge. And book knowledge and knowledge, not always, people with PhDs won't always understand what it is you're saying. It's the complexity of life you know, that is often distilled to its most simplistic form. When you can explain, when you're talking about mysticism, when you're talking about the earth, when you're talking about, these are very complex ideas. And having a PhD doesn't enable you to truly understand always these complex ideas. So it's not about book knowledge. It's about lived experience, and it's about wisdom, and it's about being able to listen to the earth and understand what she is saying, and to listen to objects that are around us and understand that there are life forces within them. And there are people who get that, but you can have a PhD and learn it through books, but you can have lived experience and also understand that. So it's not about book knowledge, it's about knowledge. And that goes a long way. There's so much wisdom that you carry with you because you understand the power of living things and the way to harness that power. And not everybody understands that, you know. So it's not about, you know, it's not about books. It's not about how much you've been in school. You've been in school for a long time, my dear, for a long time.
Yeah, when I left the penitentiary, the man told me, he said, you come here done, said, leave with, this was way before I got ready to go. And couldn't read, couldn't write. The boy was writing my girlfriend letters, and a whole lot of things were going on. So I was looking at a comic book. He said, why are you looking at a comic book and you can't read? I made up my mind right then. I someone know what this comic book is saying. First two words I ever learned to read were Captain Marvel. And later on, I went through life and everything. I thought all root doctors, witch doctors, and people that was in the occult, I always thought they were black. They were from down south. Dr. Buzz, Marie Laveau, Delzola Pettiford, Dr. John, and all them and everything. Through the mouth, they were telling me about them. So I met this white couple, David and Yvonne Frost from Salem, Massachusetts. And he was a warlock and she was a witch. But they stuff is different than ours. With them, it's a mind thing. With us, the incense, and roots, and those now some of them root doctors know what to do with them. But it's totally different. And I found out that they type of witchcraft was different than our voodoo.
Right.
And Marie Laveau, she was a famous witch down in New Orleans. Met her through a lady that came up this way here to do the tobacco scene and come up there conjuring. You know how it used to be. I'm gonna put some roots on you. I put someone in your doorstep. And she was the one told me about this lady named Marie Laveau. So later on, I took and checked on her, and she was a famous root doctor down there.
Oh, yes, in New Orleans.
And there is stuff going on right around us. I learned from David and Yvonne Frost. They always said that there was another world, I put it, parallel to this one, and I couldn't believe it. Until one night they were having a ceremony, and they went in trances and stuff, and later on I joined in, but as I started to go into that trance, I know right then to leave that alone. So I left that alone right there. That stuff what they do is a mind thing. And our things are totally different, because now we believe in running to the doctor, doing this and that right there. And there always been a way in the old days when we couldn't go to the doctor. And it bothers me now that people have left that alone and they just believe in what the medical man can do. I go when it's in emergency. I got slammed off in the subject. I got carried away when. That's what a witchcraft do to your mind every now and then.
Well, exactly. I mean, but it's what you were saying about breaking that connection, because there was a time where that knowledge was passed from one person to the next.
Exactly.
And now it's broken. That connection is broken, like you said. It's something about leaving to go into these large cities, and there's too much noise in the large cities. You can't even hear yourself, let alone hear other people. So, and those traditions are broken. But there is, it's not, it's about healing. It's about learning plants, and it's about learning process. Like you said, there were times that we, as Black people, couldn't go to the doctor. We had what we call country doctors. My great grandmother was a country undertaker, you know, where she would come and clean the bodies and, you know, prepare them for burial. So now we've cleaned it up so much that people don't understand death. They're fearful of death because they don't understand it. The messiness of life. People don't understand what plants look like when they come up from the earth. They wouldn't know, you know, a turnip green from a, you know, a beet green or anything of that nature, because that's not what we're accustomed to seeing anymore. So that's what I mean about knowledge. You know, there are different types of knowledge, but if you don't know the earth, if you don't know the land, if you don't know nature, what good is book sense when you're starving? You don't even know what's proper to eat and what's not. So it's a disconnect that's happening. But what I love, I mean, you had talked about, so I want to pivot just quickly because I want to get back to the earth and land and honoring, you know, the history, because at one point you were saying back near this land space behind a barn, there was a hill. And there was one point you were asking someone, where were the people who were held in bondage? Where were, you know, those African Americans who were used as slave labor? Where were they buried when they died? And you're like, there was a hill a little further away. And you're like, I know what that hill was. I know what that is. So I was going to ask about the guitar fields and whether, like, creating the guitar field, where did that come from? Was that just a place to put the guitars? Is it a place that actually exists? And if it does, what was your idea in creating the guitar field?
Well, the guitars, you know, in the long run, will go right back to the dust of the earth. And to be recognized like they're supposed to, put them back where they take, you know, where the trees growed up from and stuff. And it's hard to explain, but it makes me feel good spiritually about the guitar. So they came out of the earth, they growed up under the trees and stuff. And it gives them a chance to kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but it gives them a chance to go back where they come from a little while.
So it's an actual place. You place the guitars in the field like that.
Yeah, there's a place back there where actually the slaves dug up all that land around there and stuff. And nobody know where they was buried at, but put the guitars out there in the field and let them have a little fun until they became captive again, and in the museums and in folks' houses and stuff. I thought that's what they needed to do. Now the guitar didn't tell me that. I just had that feeling.
And did you create guitars specifically for the field, or did you just have some lying around that you thought would exist well in the field?
No, I had a whole load on them. So, some of them came from the hanging tree. Some came from the mule troughs where it was treated like we was in the days when slavery time, and it's hard to explain, but that's just the way it was. I think they were comfortable like that a little while.
Well, they look, because they do have these, Andy picked up on it, that they do have this sort of anthropomorphic, I mean, he saw a mask in one of them, and I think you did embed a mask in one, but the other ones look like they had carved faces in them. Maybe the wood was created, or the way the wood was composed, it looked like a face and you went in and enhanced it.
Now you're talking.
What's that, dear?
Now you're talking. You understand exactly the way I understand. Enhancing it when it was already there. Yeah. Not putting it there on my head and stuff. Now, this was all on the hanging tree. Everything was already there. The man brought a piece there limb, and it had a knot on it. I said to myself, I said, I'm gonna take that knot out and set it on my fireplace. I said, beating the knot and beating the knot. When the knot came out, guess what it was?
What?
A shoe.
Really?
He couldn't believe it. He jumped in the truck about weeks later on and coming out, and he couldn't believe it. So the only thing we did was got the rough places off in it and put some protective coating on it, and he got it in the museum, and it came out. The knot looked just like, it was shaped like this, 2 knots. But when you beat it out, when you beat the knot out there, it came out a shoe.
Wow.
In the shape of a shoe. We know it when a shoe cut them back and wear that small. Sure did. Scared. Kind of made me a little bit fearful, because, you know, messing with the occult and stuff, I know that strange thing goes on.
Well, but you come to it in a way that honors it. I mean, I think if you came to the wood with a different kind of, I mean, there's an openness, it seems, when you see a piece of wood. You're honoring it, you know, to honor what that knot is, to see it, to allow it to become whatever it wants to become. That's really honoring the wood itself. If you, like you said, if it's a factory and you don't care what the wood has to say, you're just going to carve whatever it is you want. That's different. I could see the need to have fear in that, but because you do see it and you honor it and you create and enhance what is already there, I can't imagine that force there would push against you in that way. I mean, but I am curious. I mean, so I would like to hear some stories. I mean, we know about the hanging tree, but are there other stories about the sort of wood resisting, or spaces that gave you greater pause when looking at it? I mean, you talk about the energy of the hanging tree and how that is it was a malevolent feeling with it because of what transpired and what was still embedded in that wood. I do believe that. I believe what it is you say, because I do believe in the life force, and I do believe in transference, that the thing that is expressive can get embedded into the thing that isn't moving, that's static, that's fixed. I do believe that. I don't think that's mysticism. I think that's just a knowledge about energy that's not created. Once it's created, it's never destroyed. It just keeps moving into other forms. So that is that's both a gut instinct, and it's also both a sort of abstracted law of physics. So I believe that, but there are those spaces where, you know, have you had spaces where things have resisted you? I'm just curious what your experiences in the studio, so to speak, is like.
Well, they had one problem. Let me see if I can find it. You see that right there?
Oh, yes.
Looks like it was carved in there, don't it?
It does.
These were 2 knots right here. You see them?
I do.
There were 2 knots. This big piece here was the knot on the outside of the whole tree. But now you imagine that it's covered with bark and stuff, and this right here, I enhanced that in the nose and dug the eyes out and kind of made it so you could see it. But that was, if you look on the side of here, you can tell it was a knot. It was a knot on the tree.
Right.
That's what it was. And all I did, as you said a while ago, was enhance. That's all I done. It was already there. But where the eyes were 2 knots. But see, my imagination might have got carried away because I saw it before we enhanced.
Mm-hmm.
But all it was a slab of wood about that wide and about that long. And this whole area in there was a knot. When you looked at it, you would say, hey, 2 knots, right? But see, I saw it different.
Right, right. No, and it lets you know what it wants to be. So when you were enhancing that wood, did you get any odd sense of it, or did it just allow you to carve what it was that you saw in it?
It just was not a good feeling because, see, I live about a half a mile back in the woods. And late at night in the little building I was doing this in and everything, it was an odd, strange feeling. And most of the time when it get real bad, I'd leave it alone and go in the house. But the feeling cannot be described unless you have experience yourself. But it's not a good feeling messing with that. And you know for a fact that there ain't nobody around, but you keep looking around. Have you ever had that sensation you be standing somewhere and somebody's staring at you and you know they're staring at you and you don't know how you know? That's the sensation you get messing with that wood.
So now when you're done carving it, do you actually make a guitar of it? I mean, what kind of responsibility do you feel knowing that energy is there? Do you continue to make a guitar from it and use it, or do you just, like you said, leave it alone, put it out in the field? What do you do with that?
I make playable instruments because, see, I got sense enough when I'm having them feelings and stuff that I leave it alone at night. I make playable instruments. I tell you, you need to go and if you ever be down this way, go by and pick one up, and you ain't got to take my word for it. Just pick it up and mess with it. Do the commercial instruments first. Notice the feeling. Get one of those horrendous guitars that folks call them, and it's a totally different feeling. It's a totally different feeling. I don't mess with them too much because you take white folks, see, they don't bleed much. They give them a plenty of snot out. Tim brought one down and said, "This thing here sure sound good." I didn't bother with it. I took a commercial for the time play.
So once it leaves, it's at anyone's choice whether they choose to have it or not.
Right, because see, I know the deal. They know it and they mess around with it. Because anybody got sense enough to know the difference in the feeling when you mess with an instrument, because if you ain't got no feeling, you can't play. You can't sing if you don't feel the song.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, you're going to speak to a lot of people as this goes on. What are some of the things that I should have started the conversation by saying, you know, a lot of people are talking at you, but what are those things that you feel people haven't discussed that you feel are important to talk about, important to share?
But most of the time, professional people, they have an area of what they want to know about, the questions and everything, what they know what they want to ask, and they want the answer. I mean, the answer, I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, they already know what they want to ask, and if you go there putting a whole lot of unnecessary stuff that we ain't interested in, actually make me feel foolish. I'd rather go along with them asking because they already know what area they're working in and what they're interested in and stuff. Right. Something really, you know, about the instrument really ain't important. See, I'm learning a whole lot from you today that you don't even know I'm playing. I'm learning a whole lot in areas that I hadn't even thought about on the guitar. Joey, the next person asks me questions and stuff, I can, when the bulb light up, I can use some of the knowledge that you have shared with me to explain to them a little bit more in detail about the instruments. That's just a blessing that you call up, Dana.
Well, you're a blessing, honey. I mean, I tried not to read too much because I didn't want to call you with a specific idea. The only thing I wanted to confirm in my heart, to be truthful, was this idea of transference, you know, to take the ecstatic. And like I said, you know, I'm working often with people who are in the church. So it's that ecstatic, that the dreams that come to them, the feeling of the spirit within them that they want to transfer into cloth. That's the knowledge that I had. I just didn't know if you felt the same thing when you're creating in wood, if you felt that same ecstatic can be transferred into this object, into this thing. But what I'm hearing is twofold, is that living thing, that piece of wood, also tells you what it wants to be, that you start from that. It's not so much a transference of something you feel or hear, but something that the wood is speaking to you, and you're honoring it by just simply carving and creating based on what it's telling you. That's what I'm getting. I hope I'm getting that right.
Right. You getting it right.
Okay.
Because if you want something about the wood that intrigued me a little taste, I wouldn't even mess with it. But the sound that I was seeking, since the woman don't sing no more blues with me and stuff, I kind of, every now and then I might look for the sound in an instrument, but not aggressive as I have in the past. Mm-hmm. See, at one time I thought that I didn't hear it and somebody else heard it, but that wasn't what the thing was. See, the woman, I didn't even know the guys were looking at the woman. They weren't studying music, and I got carried away with that and laid it down for a while. I quit messing with guitars and everything for a while, and then I started back, and I met Tim, and about a year there, I just didn't do too much. Mm-hmm. Messed around and got married, and the woman told me, said, all you got to do is just tell me you love me if you don't mean it. I said, then I will be a liar. I don't think it's nice to tell a person a lie. Our relationship began on just having fun, and then all of a sudden, she fell in love. I kept my word. I wasn't married, but it wasn't what she thought it was. I told her, I said, you might not want to marry me. I said, oh, my mind is bad. You'll change, but it didn't ever change.
Mm. And how long did that last?
8 years. The other one, the first woman, boy, she was a rough woman, but we hung out together 18 years.
Wow.
She was a thug. I don't know, but there was something about that woman that I liked, and it wasn't no love. It's hard to find truthful people, and as of the day, I can say that she told the truth.
Yeah.
No such thing about no love, or were you with that guy last night? How come you didn't come home? There wasn't nothing like that. Mm-hmm. Open relationship, which you won't ask about that, but that came out.
That's okay, because it's all a part of the experience. I mean, it's all a part of living, and that's what you bring to what you do. You can't separate those two things, you know. You can't separate it out. It's the fullness of who you are.
Yeah, I got a daughter young that turned into a few nut, tend to be what you call it, patting stuff on folks' face. Somebody gonna tear their head up. I told her, I said, you're not making get these people youthful and claiming they looking young and stuff. I said, some of them people get mad and go, oh, Pop, I got it, boy. I got it covered, man.
Well, now, are you passing on this gift that you have? Do you share it with her, or is anyone interested? When you create, do you create alone, or do you take on what we call apprentices? Do you take on people who want to learn?
I always work, not cutting you off, but I always work alone. Mm-hmm. I do the same thing you do. You do the experience this. You take a person under your wing, you being just as nice as you can to learn them something else. And you find out that they ain't interested in what you have already known and experienced. They interested in introducing you something that nobody don't even know where it's working at. That's the way they're messing with instruments called. you can mess up a $1,400 or $1,500 piece of wood just for being stupid. But they won't listen. Some of them won't listen at you, and I can tell you we're educated. My sisters taught me like you do a couple of them, but I can tell you, and then hey, being a black woman, your education wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. Nobody ain't handing you nothing on that silver platter.
No, but I was blessed. You know, I did have people take me under their wings. I did. I had that. So I have deep gratitude, and I pass it on. You know, I try to, but you're right. I mean, life is a little different, you know, and people are more interested in fame than they are in being of service. It's always about a transaction and not always about a true exchange. And we live in a society that's a transactive society. You do this, I pay you that. I pay you that, you give me this. And it's not so much about people just sitting down and engaging and sharing anymore. It's not enough for some people. It's not enough. And it's another way that I feel like we're losing a bit of ground as human beings. I think we're losing a lot of ground as human beings when we make all kinds of engagement all about transaction. It's not about transaction. It's about exchange, and it's about service. So wasn't easy. It hasn't been easy. It still isn't easy. But then, you know, my life was a little better than that of my parents. So it's all a spiral. I think we get a little higher every time we come around to this point again, you know?
Yeah. These folks down here right now living in the past. A place over yonder where I grew up in Greene County. I can tell you ain't never been in on a hard-hitting southern place. Yeah. The place over there in Greene County right now, the older people. When the sun set, they ain't coming out. I used to walk down the dirt road and stuff. The guy would come by with his tractors and stuff, and a whole load of people beat folks up, hang them, drag them behind there, and kill them. And yeah, not the younger people now, but the older people, what few of them there is around and everything, the people have instilled fear in their heart. And they'll die like that. You ain't never been in the deep South either.
No, not to live. No, but my mother's from East Texas, and if you ever been to East, that's where Tyler, Nacogdoches, and all that area. That's the same kind of energy.
I don't know nothing about that because I didn't never get the famous like the Vine sisters did, and they get. Well, actually, I told them, I said, I ain't never known nobody get wealth and sing the gospel music. And Mahalia Jackson, one of the best, and never anybody exclaimed that she had a lot of wealth, but they messed around, bought a bus to travel on, and got some famous musicians to play for them and everything, and that was Big Willie to them. Then all of a sudden, here they sit. Their memory came back. Dang, there go our brother. I said, I was your brother when you were driving your bus and waiting. Walk right by folks' house. You know how they do. They couldn't stand. They thought they were famous and stuff. And you take all them guys like Blind Boys and I mean hard hitters. They ain't never got wet.
Right.
Willie Neal Johnson didn't get wet. And he was one of the most popular men out of the state of Texas that ever sung in the gospel music. They say. But if you went in the southern state, which you ain't old enough to know nothing about it now. I'm talking about if you could travel back in time. If you went there and experienced one night, the next day, if nobody didn't take you to the bus station, you'd walk. You see how they walk walking on the side of the street. Hi there, ma'am. And some this and that right there. Now, I mean, you can say it's unbelievable. I ain't but 78 years old, and I remember. I remember my mother was a housewoman. Here's the bad example she shot. One of my sisters is a housewoman. But she happened to get lucky and work for a wealthy woman, the Pepsi-Cola company. The lady that owned it, she was a housewoman for it, all right?
Right.
The lady sent her to some kind of schools and this and first one thing, well, she teach school now. But she made sure she had a formal education, and as long as she lived to get this and that, hey, you know the deal. But she was one out of a million, just like you. Ain't everybody, a lot of folks up there, the words you speaking, they wouldn't even know what you talking about. And yet they'll tell you, they'll say, yeah, look at here, I got that degree over yonder, these degrees. They make a fool right out of themselves. I saw him do it right in this place right here. Well-educated man in here, just as nice as could be. He'll come up, chump on the project. Gonna tell him how many schools he's been to. Ain't never been nowhere but out at the end of the street selling crack.
No.
And that man is a well-educated man, just as nice a man as you is. He wants to see other people be somebody besides what they already is.
Right. Right.
Got carried away again. I don't know how come on like that.
Well, you know, we are broken. Not everybody is walking around with something broken in them, you know, and it's how you seek to heal yourself. You know, not everybody has it within them to understand how to heal themselves. And so these are all band-aids, all this bravado about who they are and what they are, and you know, the lies that people tell. The reality, we all walking around a little broken. You know, some people hold fast to religion, some people, you know, immerse themselves in work, some people do different things. But you talk about having purpose in life, and I think that's the difference. Some people are driven by a purpose in their lives that allows us to use that brokenness in a different way. You know, you don't have to fix everything that's broken, as long as you can channel it to live something, to give life to something, to give vision to something. That's the difference. You know, you can tell when someone lives their life with purpose.
Yeah, and then on top of that right there, God Almighty. It's I'm thinking about that again now, that wound, what it did to me. It's hard to explain. If you ever come down this way here, I want you to make it your business, not quite say so, but just to see is I'm telling the truth. You pick up one of them instruments and you gonna say to yourself, you got to say, if you superstitious like you say, I need to put this thing in down.
Mm-hmm.
Do something about it. Like the mandrake root, which they are. I don't know. The man, when they start harvesting that root, making some type of medicine out of it, so it's extinct now. The mandrake and
Right.
how John the Conqueror and all them, we took them around in our pocket with perfume on it, and they found a way to make drugs out.
That's right, because they're powerful.
Yeah.
But you know, you could read about how people were using those roots way back when.
Yeah, and work for them.
That's right. That's right.
Work for them.
So, you know, I think we've come full circle to talking about transference, and not only transference of energy to another object, but then the transference of knowledge, you know, what you retain and what sometimes, you know, I think, because I was raised in a Pentecostal church, when people talk about, you know, the spirit burning inside of them, or, you know, a spirit dance, or all of these sort of things, you know, we don't really understand because of that disconnection, that all of those things also have their origins. They were what we carried with us from the continent and what we planted deep into the earth. So there's so much in the earth that gives us so much of who we are as Black people living in the South. Not every Black person, but most Black people. You know, when you think about certain ideas and the things that are retained, and how we understand the world and how we move through the world. A lot of that is passed from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, one generation to the next, to the next. When there is ears to hear, when people are listening and people are watching, but so many people are ready to get out of the deepness of the South because of what you're talking about, because it's that society that doesn't allow you to fully be who you truly are meant to be in this world, you know, that allows you to take your life, however broken it is, and make purpose from it. A lot of people don't want to be there anymore. But by going to these large urban centers, you may find a job, but there's a lot of disconnection that happens there. And I'm trying to, in my own way, recover these ideas so that we don't lose them, so that we at least acknowledge them.
We ain't got a whole lot of young folks out there that want to acknowledge too much. I have crossed a whole lot of states, and I walk down a lot of streets, and I have yet to meet. I can count them on about 3 hands. Now I count them on 1 hand. Well, you make 6. I have met 6 in my life successful. Besides being in a screen or playing on making fools out of their own people and stuff, I met 6 serious people about other people. A lot of people, they get a little bit up there, they don't think about the other man, the small man. And they give him a little Cadillac, a little bag of drugs on the seat, a little money in the front seat. They forget about everybody in the world, what they say. Mm. People like you, and let's see what the other guy name is. Stanley Morgan, I'm talking people where I met. And several more people named where I forgot. They got consideration for other people. They have consideration for other people. But these hood rats, they don't care nothing about each other. I lived in the hood too, you know. Mm-hmm. But they don't love each other. They get right out down the street with their signs and stuff and go right back in the project where they live at and kill one of their brothers. Mm.
Well, hopefully, I don't know what it's going to take, you know, but somewhere down the line, someone told them they didn't mean anything. Like I said, we're all broken in our own way. And it's like you're trying to find your tone. It's like people are trying to find their purpose. And, you know, they don't have a lot of bandwidth to experiment. You know, it's like you can only do this, you know, in their minds. And so creating a space for people to see what is really out in the world, to give them an opportunity to see what they could be, you know. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot invested in sharing with people all that they could be, all the potential things that they could be, and let them know that they can reach that. There's not a whole lot that's out there. So it's important that you're doing what you're doing, because whether they know it or not, they see you, they see what you're doing, you know, and the question is, you know, will they find their purpose? Will they find their tone? And I love this idea that you started all of this just by trying to recreate this tone. I worked with a gentleman who's now gone, but he told me about a story. And he's African American, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Learned to play the double bass, classical music, classical instrument. Traveled all over the world, lived in Germany, but even though he was from America. And he talks about this group of musicians from Europe who went into the deepest heart of Africa. And they thought they were doing this great thing by playing this African group, this community and village. They were playing their hearts out with all this classical European music. And they were so disappointed when, after they played their hearts out, that this community of people didn't jump up and clap and say bravo or whatever. And they just got up and walked away. And the musicians were like, well, what? They can't appreciate our music. That's why they walked away without clapping or applauding. And then later someone came to them and said, you know, the community is very sad for you. They're very sad for you because you can't find your tone. They couldn't, you know, they were saying you couldn't find your tone to these musicians who were classically trained musicians who were playing the bass and the cello and the violin. They saw these instruments as fighting one another, not harmonizing with one another, not blending together in a way that elevated one another. They saw them as in conflict. So what the villagers offered to them was to help them find their tone. So it's such a beautiful idea that when people come into a space and they have no idea what is beauty for the community, they have no idea what's important for a person, and when that idea came to me because of your desire to find your tone. That somehow, is that tone this sort of elusive thing? Is it the thing that's giving you purpose? But is it really the thing that you ultimately, I don't know, I was just thinking about it. I'm trying to stitch these stories together. I'm not sure they're going to stitch together as cleanly as I'd hoped they would, but I guess it's just something about finding a tone, and whether that tone is really about purpose. And in that, I think you have found your purpose. I think it's just the thing that keeps pushing you forward. And you said you just gave up on it, but then you picked it back up. So I'm sort of curious. I don't want to talk more than I ask in questions, and I want you to talk more because that's what this is all about. But I'm just sort of curious with sharing that story, if it feels like the tone is about purpose. Is it a tone that you feel you're still looking for? Is it a tone that you feel just is the thing that pushes you forward to do the kind of work that you know you need to do?
The tone used to control me, but now I've got it so that it don't control me like it used to. I couldn't wait to get an instrument at someone to see could I just hear one of them sing a time. I don't know what happened. I was looking at TV one time, and another person had the same feeling that I had about that sound and everything. But I'm gonna tell you, it's hard to explain, and it's hard to know what it sounds like. It sounds so daggone good. I mean, good. Never heard an instrument sound that good. And another strange thing happened to me too. After then, I can be listening to a whole group, and I can tell you directly which instrument in the out of tune, who out of key, and all that stuff. And it ain't fun to listen to people perform when you know that. So you have to make yourself not do it. But if I could just find the tone and the purpose was the tone drove me to this building these guitars and stuff. So I ring up folks and enjoy them. I don't know.
So when did you first hear the tone?
It was back, let me think now, about 51 years ago. No, it wasn't 51 years ago, but a girl was born in, let's see. She in her 40s back. I'm gonna say about 39 years, maybe more than that years ago, cause I was working then on 10th Street. I was an amateur doing body work. So I finally went to school and got certified and moved up a notch in the pay and the knowledge of how to really fix the cars and stuff. But it had to be long about that time. Because I had a little taste of money then to build a semi-shop and to buy nice wood and this and that right there. Oh, then I used wood where I pick up here and there. But So the tone had to drove me to the purpose, cause I started doing better instruments, making pretty good money. But the man told me when I graduated, he said, they won't be hiring you no more. I said, why that? He said, they'll be hiring what you qualified to do. And I found out what I know wasn't nothing. Beating out of a dent, putting bondo on it, ain't any way to fix nothing.
Well, and then the other thing I wanted to know too is how did you learn how to do the guitars? How did you learn to build them? Did you learn from someone? Did someone share some knowledge with you? How did you come about doing this?
No, I learned it on my own, messing with them and stuff, and I just wanted a different sound than what Gibson, Fender, and Gill and all them folks had. I just wanted to isolate my sound. But that was before the little incident and everything. So I had them laying everywhere, all kind of shapes, this and whittle with knives and take axes and chop it down and do this and that right there, because I really weren't interested in shaping the guitar like the man had shaped his guitar, like the torso of a woman. I didn't want mine shaped like that. I want them a different way, but after a while I kind of cultivated till I started growing some different styles and shapes and everything that was comfortable to work with. If I had good sense, I could have probably have been a guitar master. But see, after that incident, there's something happened to my head about that sound. Because I was doing good playing shot house blues. I mean, anytime you get out there and knock down $200 or $300 a night on the weekend, you ain't doing bad. And a gospel group, when I played with the famous gospel groups and everything, if they got $20 or $30 on the church offering, that was good for them. But you could go to the shot house and everything. If the entertainment was good, they would pack in and everything and put the collection down for you. I got away from that. I don't even think I could play blues all night no more.
Are you still performing?
No, every now and then I pick up those accident, no song that I don't know what it is. It's just a tune, and when I get bored with that, I just lay the guitar down. I bought all kind of instruments, trying to do this and do that, but every one of them ain't nothing but a pickup on some wood with the strings ringing across it and send it to the amplifier. I want something different than that. I don't like acoustic guitar. I play country music for my sister, but I just did that because she didn't even know it. And, she had a brain cancer and she didn't have long to live because Martha told me not to tell her to humor her, and her mind had got bad. It's hard to explain, but anyway. I kicked the bucket and I left the country gospel music alone.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
They have been dead now, 20 or 25 years. But there's some real country music. Black people come from out in your home state.
Oh yeah.
I mean, some real ones. But these around here, they want to be. They can't play like them folks who come from Texas. I'm talking black people. They can really get the job done. But these folks around here, they're hooping and hollering and stomping and stuff. That ain't the way country music is played.
Who do you like to listen to, blues-wise?
Well, my favorite blues-wise was Muddy Waters.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't have one song I liked, and that was 40 Days and 40 Nights. The rest of them I didn't care much about because they had the same slide and jump up licks that John Lee Hooker, Lightning Hopkins, Temple Red, and all them folks had. And I run into Chuck Berry one time down in Augusta, Georgia, and he didn't have he didn't have a musician with him. One about 30 people there, you would think you'd win more than that, but he wasn't the only one there. There were other people He didn't have that house band. He gave me and old guy a tramp we were thumbing here and there. We got a chance to play a little bit.
Nice, nice.
But the thing about it is nobody and don't even care who the musician is. The only person they focus on is the one behind the microphone. They ain't interested with music. Musicians can walk all by them all day long, and they ain't studying. But he'll come say, let's use James Brown for instance. Lord have mercy. They'll cry.
Well, he had quite an ensemble. A lot of the people who played with James Brown went on to do some incredible things.
Well, I didn't never know too much about nobody but the Flames. They were from down south, and I learned David Ross, and he was the lead guitar player. Mm-hmm. Then he started to messing around with Bootsy Collins and them, and he got so mean to them that they left him alone. And I don't know who the other one was. He got so mean and nasty. Just like Chuck Berry, the last gig he was on, me and the lady were sitting here looking at it, and they gone. He had to get Keith Richardson in to back him up. My brother wouldn't even mess with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, and passing on that did you ever know James Sanford Thomas?
No,
He was an artist in of himself. He also made artwork. He made little heads and ashtrays and out of clay. Did you know him at all? He was more in Delta.
No, I never heard of him.
Okay.
Most of the time down in the Delta and Black Bottoms and places like that right there, and I thought that if a man could play a little bit, he'd get famous. I found out I'm supposed to study what I was playing. Well, they had their own style.
Yeah, well, Delta blues is definitely its own style. It's very different than Texas picking and any other, Kentucky or any other place. It's kind of a birthplace, but it, as you say, it has its own sensibility and its own style. I won't lie and say I'm not a musicologist. I just know the sound when I hear it, and it's very, very different. Yeah.
One of your homeboys is up here. I heard some recording he done with Tim Duffy, Albert Collins' nephew. He been playing up this way, because he hadn't been up this way because Tim Duffy from up there in Hillsborough. Mm-hmm. I heard some. He actually better than ever was.
Yeah, well, you get a little age on you, and he must be very old at this point.
This is nephew or great nephew or something. He can't be dead. All that old. He got to have some age on. Because Albert Collins, he been gone quite a while.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Albert Collins, the only blues man you'll see him playing the Telecaster. He played the Telecaster with a capo halfway the neck.
Wow.
I don't see how he played, but he did.
Well, do you get inspiration sometimes when you hear these musicians? Do you desire? I mean, I love this idea about how you're reversing the sort of poles in the guitar, the chambers, how you reverse them to really kind of make a sound. I love to call it's kind of doing something purposefully wrong, or like call a work.
Huh? See, there you go, right there. You know exactly where I'm coming from. Purposely wrong.
Right.
I hadn't thought about that.
Well, I call it a willful misuse sometimes when people because it is, when you're reversing it, like you said, you're shifting the sound in it in such a way that allows it's something quite unique. Like you said, it's not the average bear you're going to see walking down the street. It's not the average sound you're going to hear. You're going to hear something so uniquely different, even though the wood is going to give you a different tone. Yeah. But so how did you get to reversing the chambers?
Well, messing around with guitars and everything, thumping on the wood and Then after I assembled it, I noticed that it had different sounds and this and that right there with the little pockets of chambers where I had in there and stuff. And that's where that came in. And I kept messing with them till I was perfecting.
Yeah, I was wondering if hearing music sometimes, like you were saying, searching for a tone, trying to capture something that seems fleeting, something that, as you said, capturing that sound to kind of reverse the polarity of the chambers, to shift them around, to sort of make the guitar sound a different way. Is it something you've heard elsewhere that you're trying to recreate when you've done that?
The honest way I could compare it to would be that sound and that feeling, but it don't even mimic it in no way at all. And I even went to the extent, some of them guitars would, I was a fool for Steinway pianos and wood that's over 175 years old, documented, and carbon, hear what it is to make sure that I was telling the truth. Now, it makes a remarkable sounding instrument, but to me, it just ain't that. It ain't that. I mean, it sounds good now.
Yeah.
It sounds real good. It sounds better than Jose Feliciano's classic guitar. And it's amplified. Amplifications always make it sound a little bit aggressive, if you know what I mean.
Right.
It ain't got that clean, crisp sound like Jose Feliciano's classic guitar.
Uh-huh.
But it brings out a totally different sound out of it. The pianos I use all the wood on the piano. I couldn't make them the necks because it don't make sense. Sit here and whittle on the neck a week when you buy one for $90.
Right.
The body is what's important anyway. If anybody don't like the way the neck is, I don't care.
Well, I'm sure it sounds really pristine because that's the way the piano was developed, for wood to make it sound so pristine. But sometimes you don't want it to sound too perfect. You want to have a little grit in it.
Well, most people, I used to play with pedals and stuff. You can do things with your pedals and stuff, but I like for it to come out clean. Just a little touch of chorus every once in a while, depending on what I'm playing. A song that would sound real good with chorus in it would be, I can't even walk without you holding my hand, and I want to be at the meeting, and certain old hymns like that.
Right. So we could wrap it up. I don't know if there's anything specific you want to share or say. Like I said, I wanted it to be a conversation. I really didn't have anything specific. But you know, I'm using this language, the dirty South. So I'm going to ask you, when I say the dirty South, what does that mean? What does it evoke for you to say the dirty South?
The dirty South, especially in the work time. Everybody you saw, women, children of age, everybody come out in the field was covered with dirt. Every one of them. And they started over there where I lived at now. I don't know about the other part of it, but dirty South. The name came up, South Carolina, North Carolina, and that's about it.
So it evokes
People had a hard time out there amongst all that dust.
Mm.
They got a strange little name they call different things and everything. Cause see, they wasn't well educated. They made up stuff, just like the songs. People don't know it, but they made up the songs. And guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, the Rolling Stones. See, the Rolling Stones took and stole their name from Muddy Waters, and then they done a lot of muddy songs and stuff. Here come Otis Redding with Lightning Bug Rose. And he had the same, him and Keith Richards had the same licks. Then there was Steve Cropper. He had some, I can't think of the man's name, or licks he had to do with Soul Man and stuff like that right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they'll take a sound now. You have to be real careful now. They'll take a sound and claim they ain't looking at it. Now, Tim is a hell of a blues guitar player. If he's sitting in a room and you don't know he in there, you'll think you done went back down south. All that stuff he could do, especially that song with that woman, Ella Brown or Ella somebody, a famous lady blues guitar player. And he could play it right up just like she did. So that tell you, when he was looking at her doing it, he watched.
So he took her voice and transferred it into the strings.
Now, she done it. It was how do you call it? Musical. Let's put it that way. It was instrumental, and
Yeah.
she was real good at it. And she was way up in age when she was playing it when Tim Neal recorded that thing.
Mm.
But he's a hell of a blues man, and hard to get him to play him cause. See, these a tradition with blues man. He has to live the blues.
Right.
If you don't live the blues, you can't play him. Just like that lady where I tell you about, used to have one song, the boys go crazy. Stoop down, baby. Now you know that don't make no sense. Stoop down, baby. Stoop down and let your daddy see. Man, they be all over the floor with all the hollering and clapping and stuff. And the song really don't even make no sense. It really don't make no sense. And guess what? In the 20 or 30 years fast forward and everything, I found out by listening at a radio station. I don't know how that guy got it, but not a radio station, on the telephone, some woman named, anyway, she was from Louisiana, she recorded this song. So that means two people were linked together because she don't know this woman and that woman didn't know her.
They never met?
Never met.
Wow.
This woman don't come away with doing the blues with me. She ain't never been nowhere but the phone.
Wow.
And that lady from Louisiana, I'm quite sure she ain't never been up this way.
Mm-hmm.
But now, the song corresponds, I said linked up, but this Stoop Down Baby is there. But the other verses is a little bit different.
Mm.
So, you know, they get kind of
energy.
brash in them John Brown or blue shot houses every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
They lose all respect.
That's amazing.
You ain't never been in that shot house, have you?
I never. No,
I can look at you and tell you ain't never been.
I'd like to say I have to impress you, but I haven't.
Well, you know what? You ain't missing a lot. Because, see, number one, you wouldn't fit in. You had sat over in the corner by yourself because they said, hey, man, keep on no. Oh. They wouldn't ask you where you were from with the good English you speak and everything.
Well, now I have
They
been.
were making an assumption.
Well, I've been in the Silver Slipper in Houston. We have our little juke joints in Houston, so. But you know, I you know, it's a mix. It's mostly an older generation, but you know, people go, and they have music. Sometimes they play pre-recorded music, but lots of dancing and lots of setups and lots of beer. So it's a nice little joint.
But what I'm talking about is shot house. When they open a jar of cone whiskey like that right there, and when you had to say, you hand it to the next. And, they make it. You already know that.
Do they make their own whiskey?
Yeah.
That's the thing now, you know, people making their own whiskey.
But back then, see, we didn't have the stuff to make it with, right? They used steel drums, wash pots, and it was terrible whiskey.
Yeah.
You know nobody, but it didn't taste good.
Yeah. Well, corn liquor and moonshine, right?
Yeah, corn whiskey.
Corn whiskey. Wow.
Corn whiskey.
Well, some of that can make you go blind, you know.
Well, that in Chicago did, see, because Capone and his boys, they didn't care about using lead and, not lead, galvanized instruments and everything that contained a high content of zinc and stuff. But these folks what made it around here, they made it a drink.
Right.
So I ain't gonna say they made it right, but it didn't kill nobody. But up there in Chicago, reading in the old newspaper and everything, a lot of people died from bootlegging.
Right. So what would I expect? Do these spaces still exist? These little houses of repute?
No,
Oh, they don't refuse.
they, when our people got slick and found out you did not have to have a house where you run through the front door out the back door, and had little side areas where the beds were at and where the ladies take their boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff and everything, and start moving in other houses, they quit having for shot house.
Yeah.
They had moved up a notch. They were doing better. And things got to working better and better and better. So now you don't even see a shot house no more. A shot house is straight through.
Yeah. They have them in Houston. They do have them, and they're still around, these shotguns.
Sure.
Yeah, they have them. That's part of the architecture of Houston.
You ain't none around here.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And that's just what they said. You could kick open the door and shoot a shotgun and go right out the back door.
That's why they call them shotgun house.
That's
And
right.
you run straight out of the house, straight. Yeah, I don't know why they did. Straight out of the house. He'll set the wheel where you dip your water in with the bucket, and there was the toilet right behind the wheel. Now, why it was like that, I don't know. You run through the shot house, pass the wheel, and they'll sit there. They call them toilets down here, and y'all probably call them bathrooms.
Yeah, well.
I never understood why they had it like that. Every shot house had it straight out the back door, the wheel, or the pump, and then the toilet.
Well, I guess you would want the water system close, but not too close to one another.
Well, they were close. I ain't gonna even shut and jive with you. They were close. Anybody ever been down south will tell you. Now, other houses more like that.
Yeah. Well, I know where my mother grew up, the well was actually in the front, not in the back. Because, you know, if you're walking in the back to an outhouse, you may fall down the well. You don't want to have to do that.
Well, the outhouse and the well was, that's the way it was. And the unshot houses, we'll see, one man owned all the shot houses, let me tell you about it. His name was Elliot Allen. And it was people that worked on the farm before he lived in them houses. And every one of them was constructed the same way. But they pushed them down, and I think they got, what the name of them houses where you can rent down, condos or something of those down there. I don't know.
No.
I ain't been through that in a long time. Too old to hang in the project now.
Well, I think it's, we should wrap it up. I'm enjoying my conversation with you, though. I'm enjoying my time with you.
You don't know how tickled I'm here to meet somebody of your caliber. I'm clear. The little 22s and 38s right here. But daggone, you ain't up there in the 44 Magnum and 40 Glock area.
Now you're talking my language. You know I'm a Texas girl, so.
But you don't speak Texas, though. I know a guy from Texas named Josh. He talks just like those John Brown or cowboys and stuff.
Oh, well, you know, it doesn't fall too far from the tree. If I'm around people who are speaking, it's a matter of time that it'll come out. It'll come out.
Oh, I got you. You got that stash back yonder and presented the other stuff. I got what you mean.
No, I am who I am. Now, I'm not presenting you anything that I'm not.
I know you ain't putting on that.
Yeah.
It would be foolish if you got all the education not used. See, I'm using all mine. I'm 100%. But most folks in there say, I hear him on the telephone when I be talking about this. What is that guy saying? What is that he's saying? Do you understand what? Don't know me, listen right out. Don't bother me none.
Well, you carry the wisdom with you, my dear, and you have the knowledge. It's in your hands and it's in your heart and it's in your mind. And I'm tickled pink. I'm thrilled. I'm honored to have spent the time with you. And I hope they're going to edit it because I think we were rambling a lot, but you know, there's a lot of beautiful nuggets in there.
I get carried away quick.
And I hope when this pandemic is over, I can get on the road. I'd love to come and see you in person and say hi.
I sure wish you would do that. And do you drink?
Yes, sir, I do.
I get some Napoleon Brandon when you let me know before you get here, and I'll call my buddy Simon over there in France and see can I get us some Napoleon Brandon.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. All
And
right, and I'll bring you some whiskey from Virginia too.
do that. I got a
Yeah.
bottle down there. Well, it ain't but a Kona in there now. I've been sipping.
No, it's not corn whiskey. It's not corn. It's a beautiful whiskey. I'll get your information from Aaron. I'll
Do
send
that.
you some. So that way you can enjoy it before we see each other anyway.
I want you to come on down here when the virus cover up and leave so my home boys can hear somebody talk like folks born to talk.
Okay, okay. I love that.
One of them over there, Gigolo, can't talk now. They bit. I told her, I mean, I don't know where he get his accent from. Claims he don't know where I got mine from.
Well, we come by it truly by nature. It's by nature, nature and living. But I have a friend in Houston, and I tell you, most Texans don't talk the way he does, but he talks like a true Texan. I mean, down to the twang. I'm like, I don't know anybody who speaks like that anymore, but it's a beautiful sight when you hear it, for sure.
I can understand that, cause to hear a brother talking like that, man, that would be a real deal to me.
Oh yeah.
Do he ride horses and stuff?
I'll record him one day and send it to you.
Do that. Do just that.
Wow. Well, beautiful, my love. It's good to meet you. And I'm going to hope and pray that we get on the other side of this and we can meet in person
I
sometimes.
sure hope so too.